Hello and welcome to all the students of the postgraduate course on dance. Today we are going to look at something that you have been looking at for a long time but possibly not paying enough attention to, which is the costume of Kathak through the ages. I hope you are ready to come with me on this journey. Now, with the contemporary as the starting point, the costume, attire and jewelry of Kathak has come to be explored in retrospect using paintings, drawings, sculptures and even photographs. It deserves a careful look as it throws up many interesting features. Even though some of the most important centers for Kathak have been the princely states of Jaipur, Lucknow, Banaras, Raigad and Delhi, where it attracted the highest patronage, we need to look beyond, often in far off lands, to find the kind of evidence we need. For instance, some sculptural images are found in the erstwhile Mauryan kingdom, while others are found as far away as the Swat valley. The reason that we find them in these far-flung areas is that these areas lie in the trade route contiguity. And thus areas of Central Asia, the northwest frontier and the eastern end of the Gangetic plain all get linked with the rest of the country through the northern plains. This is through the heterogeneous network of finance, trade, diplomacy, crafts and learning, the pathways of monks and armies, down which dance influences, artistic practices, artistic populations, creative communities also traveled. Therefore, since ancient times, traces of influences can be seen in the culture of this region, whether it was from a Vedic Sanskrit verse that found a parallel in the verses from the Zend-Avesta of Persia, which I will describe just to prove my point, or in the evolution of clothing, language, music and dance, as this point reiterates. Now let me give you a little excerpt from a Sanskrit Vedic shlok that says the divine ceremonies performed by the priests for removing the obstacles before the brave are dedicated to the sun god. Now what the shlok says is this, hear it carefully. Tam Bhagvantam Yajatam Shuram Dhamasu Yavishtham Mitram Yaje Hotribhyah. In the Zend-Avesta, which is the Persian text and belongs to the Parsis, it's an old text. The words say Tam Aventam Vajatem Suram Damahu Yavistam Mitram Yajai Haotridbyo. See how similar it is? See how it's sounding alike? The words are alike, the meaning is alike. Now the eminent dancer and author Shobna Narayan, who has researched and thought extensively about these aspects, believes that this dance form is actually over 2500 years old. A comparison of the poses and stances of sculptures from the region of the northern plains to those employed in Kathak today suggests a continuity of stance, pose and form radiating into the ethos of the Kathak dance form. Sculptures on the pillars of the arcade utilized from Jain and Hindu temples at the Qutub Minar corroborate this view. Some of the earliest images that suggest this dance date back to the 3rd century BC. As the dance style itself has changed to reflect the different influences and the different milieus in which it found itself, so too has the costume and performance of the dancers. Therefore, one would assume that during the period when it was practiced and patronized in a Hindu court, it wore a costume that was a ghagra or a sari, and that only after the coming of the Muslims did the dancers wear the angarkha pajama set or the kurta pajama outfit. Yet, 5th century images from Madhya Pradesh would suggest otherwise. In Kathak, there are 2 types of costumes available both for men and women. Most men wear a dhoti and a bandi, or if their figure permits it, they keep their chest bare even as they dance in a dhoti that is held tightly in place with a sash or a decorative belt. A janeu or the sacred thread is worn across one shoulder and it crosses the chest to the other side at the waist. Alternatively, they would wear a churidar pajama and angarkha. The costume for the female dancer is the lehenga choli dupatta combination or a churidar pajama angarkha dupatta set. Often these are described as the Hindu dress and the Muslim dress, or the temple dress and the court dress. The word angarkha, from the Sanskrit angarakshaka or limb keeper, is sometimes also called angrakha colloquially. The design is akin to a churidar pajama and kameez, but is somewhat tighter fitting above the waist, and the skirt portion explicitly cut on the bias to enhance the flare of the lower half during spins. The skirt may also be cut on the round, but beginning just below the bust line. This style is known as anarkali after the dancer who popularized it. Beneath the top, the legs are covered by the churidar or figure hugging trousers, folded up, giving the look of cloth bangles on the shins. Optional accessories are a small peaked cap, often plumed like anarkalis in the film Mughal-e-Azam, and a bandi or small waistcoat to enhance the bust line. A belt made of zari or precious stones is sometimes also worn on the waist. The bare chest look during performance for men is a recent development, as neither in the temple nor in the court were the dancers permitted such liberties. Covering the torso, even if it was with fine cottons, was the tradition. There are images available of Wajid Ali Shah wearing an angarkha cut in a manner as to reveal part of his chest, but that would appear that the dance lover was making a virtue of the fact that his roundness did not permit a tight top. The traditional costume for men is to be wearing a kurta bandi or at least an angarkha. In some cases, particularly in courtly settings, even an achkan with a pajama and topi carried the day. Below the waist, traditionally the dhoti was tied in the Bengal style with many pleats and fans, although dancers were also known to tie their dhotis more simply. There is the option of wearing a men's bandi too, along with dhotis. Today, increasingly, the dhoti is getting to be pre-stitched for the ease of wearing it. The Mughal costume for men is the kurta churidar. The kurta can be a simple one or again adapted for dance to incorporate a wider flare, but it usually is at least of knee length. Liberal use is made of silk, brocades and trimmings for a gorgeous look. Men also wear angarkhas. Particularly older variety costumes include the small peaked cap too to go with this ensemble. This was because you couldn't appear before the king, who was your patron, bareheaded. In Lucknow, the legendary dancers of the Gharana were granted exemption from this practice, which is popularly known as topi maaf. That is how the term topi maaf became an adjective or a testifier for the skill of a dancer. So and so was a topi maaf dancer. The difference between the angarkha for the male and for the female is that the female version has far greater amounts of gathers that flare out like a fan when pirouetting. Both costumes, both for men and women dancers, are evident in the sculptures of the 3rd century BC, 1st century BC, 5th century AD, as well as found in the observations of Al-Biruni, chronicler of the Hindu way of life during the period of the Mahmud of Ghazni. One other look is the courtesan look of wearing the long, broad, farshi pajamas like Umrao Jan, which were once famous in Lucknow and are back again in fashion today. There are also several images with Shambhu Maharaj dressed in the broad pajama. When Kathak Kendra did the ballet Shan-e-Awadh, this costume was worn by the court dancers. A dress with a similar look was worn also by the Kathavachaks of Ayodhya, but it was actually a skirt called a jama. They wore an angarkha type of kurta over it, turban, and most importantly, an angavastram. This angavastram was used by the Kathavachak as a flexible prop that occasionally was draped long to become a swing, folded to become a baby, twisted into a nest shape to become the basket in which Vasudev carried the child Krishna above the swirling waters of the Yamuna, and could be loosely knotted to suggest a lotus. Later Shambhu Maharaj and now Birju Maharaj often take a dupatta to do Baithak ka bhav. Because the dancers in solo presentation of Kathak have to do Ekaharya Patra Abhinay or singly play many roles in the enactment, they need to wear a neutral dress that looks good on them, makes them look richly attired, and suggests the style as Kathak. But otherwise, it should not be distracting or inconvenient in any manner for the dancer, and in no way suggest any of the characters that the dancer enacts. Thus, in modern times, it was the ballets created by Kathak that challenged the costuming and designing department, compelling them to work out costumes that worked well for the intricacies of the dance and reinforce the theme of the ballet. In fact, the ballets produced by Kathak Kendra in its heydays, set in historical periods, saw the use of well-researched period costumes. Some that come to mind were Shane-Mughal, that used beautiful brocades, lovely prints, lusciously ornate jackets to give the look. In Roopmati Baz Bahadur, the girl dancers look like the Naikas in medieval paintings with their long jama style angarkhas. For Malati Madhav, the look was a classic one, with the structured lang dhoti embellished with several fans inspired by sculptures for Kumudini Lakhya, who played Malati. In Hori Dhoom Machori, the look was more folkish, with gamchas tied on the heads and waists of the boys, and the women wearing folk embroideries and bright colors. Katha Raghunath Ki and Geet Gobind had the characters wearing wigs, crowns and mukuts, much like the Jatra and Ramlila look. Then came the work of Kumudini Lakhya, minimalist in conception and neat in look, that needed to be supported by minimalism in costuming. She pared the jewelry down first, preferring a no jewelry look. She simplified the makeup, and so there were no long winged eyebrows or double lined eyes for her presentations. She divested the costume of unnecessary yardage in frills, flounces and fans. Straight line kurta pajamas were her unisex costume choice. She even dispensed with the dupatta. Her first work in this look was Dabkar in 1973 that broke new grounds in so many ways. It caused a flutter amongst viewers and a debate amongst gurus, particularly about the missing dupatta. It was Kumudini Lakhya's insistence and ferocious fight for this freedom that eventually carried the day. As dance is a cultural identifier, there is a tendency to use traditional fabrics from the region. Thus, Lucknow Gharana would use silks and brocades, while Jaipur Gharana artists tend to use Rajasthani field fabrics like Leheria or Bandhani or Gotapatti as embellishments. Dancer Prerna Shrimali has experimented even with some of Rajasthan's famed Sanganeri prints. Dancer Neera Batra had such a high sense of aesthetics that she would pore over miniatures to pick up the look, nuances and costume ideas. It was such an essential part for her preparation for a concert. Her look was easily identifiable with long angarkhas and diaphanous muslins and organzas, bazubands dripping pearl and emerald drops. Because of her eye for detail and authenticity, Neera was a brilliant choice for dance in a museum. Shambhu Maharaj set other sartorial standards. The Rasadharis dance while wearing a rich embellished bejeweled crown of a unique shape. It is believed that Lord Krishna himself gave them this crown. It was his own crown. He asked them to wear it while representing him, for he was so pleased with their presentation. Shambhu Maharaj often donned such a mukut and danced. The mukut must have hindered speed and mobility, but it made up for it in sheer dramatic impact. Traditionally, the jewelry one sees on the dancers, as depicted in miniatures and laden on the courtesans in their photographs, was probably not suitable for dancing. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying that it was impossible to dance in them. Either these pictures of Baithaki mehfils, where the tawaif sang, recited but not danced, or these were portraits that were taken in the excitement of the new arrival of the camera. Artists in times of feudal patronage did tend to wear heavy jewelry, often all that they possessed, both men and women. Jewelry was treated as a status indicator and possibly as a talisman to attract more gifts and inams. In the Baithaki style, the performer is seated while singing the phrases of the songs, usually reflecting the pangs of separation and the ecstasy in union, which are accompanied by dance gestures. In addition, depending on the intellectual capacity of the performer, the exposition traced myriad interpretations. Some of these interpretations remained at an earthly level, and in some cases the interpretation evolved into a spiritual level. From a jasmani, it became ruhani. This new genre was carried to perfection by the legendary artists of the Lucknow Gharana. Sometimes in this segment, the dupatta was used as a prop. It would be used sometimes as merely in a teasing manner, hiding, revealing the face, and sometimes it would become an actual prop. Commonly, jewelry used in Kathak is available in a large variety of materials and designs. Thus, the jewelry of a female Kathak could be made out of kundan, stone, gold, silver, or with various varieties of studded stones. The tika adorns the parting of her hair. Large earrings, jhumkas or karn fools adorn her ears. Her neck is covered by a close-fitting necklace called chokar or hasli, as well as a long chain, a har or kanthmala. The nose pin, besar, or the nose ring, nath or nathya, could be optional. The waist is adorned by a kardhani. The fingers are seen flashing beautiful stone embedded rings, and an arsi with a central mirror is also an option. The dancer's delicate wrists are covered with bangles or kangans. In olden times, the female dancers wore anklets or piles, but these days most dancers have done away with it. If dressed in a Mughal costume of angarkha, she may wear a chapka, a piece of jewelry that dangles on one temple, usually the left one. The male Kathak dancers wear a kundal or earrings, few long chains around the neck, an armlet on the upper arm, armband round the wrist, and finger rings and a belt around the waist. But possibly the best adornments are the ghungroos. The ghungroos are the small bells that the dancers tie around their ankles. The Kathak bells are different from those of other Indian dance styles, and they are even more different as they are not affixed to a pad or string of leather, but rather are individually woven along a thick cotton string. The usual number of bells is 100 on each ankle, although for the initial stages of learning or for children, 25 and 50 bell strings are widely available to allow the dancer to get used to them. There is a more or less accepted upper level ceiling of 150 bells on each ankle. Greater figures than this tend to involve the topmost circle of bells being tied further and further up a dancer's calf. This is generally regarded as unsuitable because it is at some distance from the point of impact, giving rise to the upper level of bells being prone to delayed sounding. Also, given the intervening space and amount of leg, this does not make for a good aesthetic. Greater numbers are also unnecessary and difficult to control, since they are more likely to sound at unwanted moments, being affected by the movement of the whole of the lower leg rather than just the ankle. The bells are strung together on a long string. This is a very specialized way of stringing them. The ancient treatise Abhinay Darpan describes exactly this way of tying the ghungroos. The sound of the ghungroos has to be checked so that it is musical and neither too loud nor too tinny. So, hearing the ghungroos is very important in selecting the ghungroos that you will wear and deciding how many of those you will wear. When it comes to dance makeup, it is essentially the eyes that are highlighted, as they are used extensively to make a nazar, or what is called nazar banana. Nazar communicates abhinay. Thus, the eyes are highlighted with kohl. Traditionally, the lips were painted red with the redness that comes from the chewing of pan. However, this has given way to the modern lipstick. Fingers and feet of women dancers are painted red with alta. In early times, they were usually decorated with mehendi. The forehead of a woman also sports a bindi, while the forehead of the male dancer is marked by a red tilak, as in the case of Pandit Durga Lalji, and a black one, as in the case of Pandit Rajendra Gangani. With the establishment of Muslim rule, the Parda system, the Pushida Ruyan as it is termed in the Shahnama, came into vogue. With this, the dupatta became mandatory to the look, but more important, this one piece of clothing introduced a whole lot of dance elements around the depiction of what the veil could do, the ghungat being one example. A staggering variety of ghungats were created. Several ways of pulling a ghungat were creatively worked out. Many guts were established around the ghungat. Naikas were being depicted by their ghungats alone. Why only the ghungat? The same creativity was being shown even with the naqab, the face covering that the Muslim women wore. Some of these guts were captured and described in a book called Banni, written by Wajid Ali Shah. The dupatta returned to haunt Kathak once again recently. Aditi Mangaldas, prime disciple of Guru Kumudini Lakhya, has displayed sartorial elegance in selecting her costume that would be the envy of any internationally renowned dance company. In fact, as early as 1983, when she was barely 22 years of age, she designed the costumes for Pandit Birju Maharaj's choreography, Nritta. Nritta was about sports, and it was choreographed soon after Maharajji had worked on the Asian Games 82 project. Aditi's group choreographies under the aegis of the Drishtikon Foundation reveal a strong sense of sartorial style. She always uses a designer, sometimes the best in the country, including designers of the ilk of Wendell Roddick's or even internationally renowned designers. Her work draws full houses in India, and she is very well known even internationally for her consistent good work with high levels of aesthetics and presentation excellence. In 2013, once again the dupatta came up. Once again it came up as a source of controversy, this time greater than the last times. 2013 was the year in which Aditi Mangaldas rejected her Sangeet Natak Academy Award, which was being given to her in the category of creative dance. She thought she deserved it in the category of Kathak. Mangaldas refused to accept it, citing that about 80% of her work was in traditional Kathak and the remaining 20% was about making the form more relevant to a new audience. Thus, she felt that she deserved the award in the category of Kathak, not creative. But she also used the same occasion to urge introspection about what exactly is meant by Kathak. She cited an example when the Kathak Kendra, the National Institute for Kathak Dance and a constituent unit of the Sangeet Natak Academy held a festival in which a young dancer was made to change her publicity material as a photograph portrayed her without a dupatta. The letter issued to her by the authorities stressed that she abide by a certain form of vesh bhusha. Aditi was of the strong opinion that we need to beware of such authoritarian decrees. She claimed that wearing of a dupatta is not an essential hallmark of Kathak, but a question of aesthetics, relevance and context, which the artist alone must have the prerogative to choose. We need to distinguish between what is extraneous and what is essential to the art form. 8 years ago, some of you may be aware of this, Malaysia-based and Malaysian Odissi dancer Ramli Ibrahim had sent the Odissi establishment into a state of righteous indignation by presenting his female dancers, who incidentally were mostly young petite Chinese women training with him in Malaysia, onto stage without an ordni. It led to cries of corruption of tradition and Philistinism. This was a strange reaction, for well over 50 years ago, Indrani Rahman, the dance diva of the newly independent India, was dancing Odissi at the highest of stages, in front of the highest in the land, without a dupatta. And she danced in this manner, both in India and overseas. As far as Mangaldas was concerned, about 40 years ago, her own guru had abandoned her dupatta. That was cause for the first concern. The first controversy around the dupatta was that. In many works, Aditi too has discarded her dupatta with no concern for what the traditionalists say. She has explained her point of view and has decided to move to the drums that she hears. So, every minute that a dancer chooses to dress in the traditional costume is a moment of choice that she has made. So, you need to link what you wear with what you are doing, what you want to present, what you want to persevere at, and what do you want to be remembered for. Standardized costuming or something new that you have to say that may demand a change in costume. Well, these are some of the thoughts I want to leave you with at the end of this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you.